Very good.
Yep, I see the live stream. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and begin now. Welcome everyone to a very special podcast after 1.0. Um, we'll dive straight into introductions for now. My name is Deus. I'm the lead game designer. I've been less active the past few weeks, but you know, I've been involved with a lot of the game design discussion over the past 3 years. So I'm glad everyone can join us. We'll go down the list that I see right now. I see we have Devin Houston here.
Hello. Yes, of course, I am Devon. I am one of the graphics artists for Thrive. And most recently, I've been making the terrain chunks, although in the last few updates of the same with DS haven't been present. But hopefully, now that 1.0 has released, should be getting into more terrain. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Then we have Hire Lehnen, our lead program design, our lead programmer for the project.
Yes, hello, I'm Hyrläinen, the lead programmer doing... What do I do? I do a lot of the programming and of course also reviewing what other people are doing and then asking them to improve their code before we accept it into Thrive. And for the past however many weeks this whole release period has been going on, I've been focusing mostly on just fixing everything because there's been so many bug reports about everything.
Yep. And then following that, we have Harperbach Hadron, who's a programmer helping us create the entire universe of Thrive, basically, right now. They want to introduce themselves.
Yeah, I'm working on the future stages, specifically with the world generation system for all of the 3D stages. So not too much in the current version, but besides that, I do some testing with some of the low-end systems.
Yeah, real exciting stuff coming from there. Next, we have someone who's been with the project for a really long time, but who's not often on podcasts recently, Nagaroth.
Yeah, hello. I've been making the trailer since I think we released 0.4.0 or something like that, or maybe it was 0.3.4. I'm not sure, but yeah, I've been here for ages, so it's pretty cool to see the project coming together after all this time.
Yep.
Other than that, I don't really do all that much. I used to do a bunch of testing, but these days I just stick to making the trailers and come with my dumb ideas on occasion.
For those in the community, version 4.0 or 3.8, that's about since 2018 or so. So, been with us for a while, as long as I've been in the community itself. So, good to see him here. And then next, we have Rathlos.
Yeah, by contrast, I've been here for only a few months, I think, at this point. I'm not a member of the game design team, and I've recently been working a lot on fixing up our automatic evolution system and making sure it makes some more interesting organisms and species using all of the parts already in the game. And we're also looking at starting the design process for the next stage, which is about to become very important.
Yep, a lot of the there's been some trickling in the past few updates, but there's been a lot of cool work is done on Auto Evo recently. So hopefully that results in a much improved experience with AI cells in the future. And that's what we have right now. I'll dive into the overview of the recent publication of 1.0, discussing some of the most recent features it added and that sort of stuff. If that works for you guys.
While you
Sounds good.
get the notes, I remember one thing that actually hyperbolic, like you need to check the performance impact of the Patrick's terrain changes, because it means there's like 100 times more terrain chunks on screen at once, so that needs some low-end device testing to see what impact that has.
What I saw so far, because they're, I think they're instanced, if I remember rightly.
Are they instanced?
Well, at least it doesn't increase the texture memory.
Yeah,
and,
it doesn't, but
number of
like
models
the
ahead.
number of triangles that need to be generated and the compute balls, I think.
Yeah, I'll have to be testing that more.
Okay, yeah, I'm checking the pull request right now, and I'm finding no evidence that it would use instance rendering.
I'll have to look into that on my end.
So it just
See if,
literally
yeah.
spawns 100 times more chunks.
Well, after a brief sneak peek of some of the developer conversations we have on development Discord, we'll dive into the notes, which I have pulled up right now. Not sure if they're pulled up on stream, but I can just read them off. Well, as everyone knows, this is version 1.0, which is a very consequential and monumental release for Thrive. It represents the future completion of the markup stage. And what that means is not necessarily that there won't be any sort of more work on the markup stage. You know, Thrive is a volunteer project. We will always, an open source, we will always welcome any sort of contributions or improvements. But it means that, in general, we do not expect any new significant mechanics to be represented or added in future additions to MicroStage. Or at least that won't be the focus of our full-time programmer, developer, going forward. That means we are generally leaving development from the first stage and entering the second stage, the multicellular stage, which for all of Thrive's history, basically, has been a very distant thought up until this point. So we are really at a very new stage of the project's history and development going forward. As people know, there have been numerous smaller releases over the past, I want to say, 2.5 months or so, rather than the more kind of regular scheduled 3-month or so release cycles. So while the very most recent update does not have every single piece of changes that we're going to discuss right now, over the past 2.5 months, we've improved, among numerous things, the terrain visual quality. They may have more effects, they have more dedicated graphics, and they have more textures applied to them, which makes certain chunks look more shiny, look more well adjusted when it comes to the lighting of the patch, have better shadows and shading and that sort of stuff. We have new events, environmental events, which can really fluctuate the amount of compounds that we see in... Oh wow, someone who has been with us for a long time just joined the project, Monkey 2, if they want to briefly introduce
guys.
themselves.
Hello. Congratulations on 1.0.
Thank you very much. Monkey was... he still chips in from time to time, but especially back then, he was a very big concept designer. So it's very, very cool to see Monkey here. But a lot
I thought for the big...
Go ahead.
I thought for the big 1.0, I couldn't not say hey, hello, and say congratulations. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, thank you very much, and you're part of the journey, so congratulate yourself as well.
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah. let me hop back into reading the patch notes, but it's good to see Mirror Monkey here too. Yeah, he can.
Good to see you guys too.
If he wishes, he can. Good to see you. Yeah, if he wishes, he can discuss more after these patch notes. But
Sure.
we introduced new environmental events over the past 2.5 months, which really shake up a lot of the compound amounts available in your environment. So your sulfur, your nitrogen, your ammonia, your iron, your over chunks. Did I say phosphate? Your phosphate, etc., can really dramatically shake up. These are bound to be a lot more intensive towards the beginning of the game, and they calm down towards the later part of the microbe stage. So it represents a lot of the instability and kind of strategic thought you might need in the beginning of the microbe stage, as you see what is popular on your environment when it comes to the resources and niches available. And it will allow for a more stable base to expand on later on once everything has settled down more. Additional features include a new visualization for your player population on the patch map, which represents cell density of your organism by dots surrounding the environment. Auto Evo has been pretty well retrofitted with numerous things. It considers now the collection and production of ammonium phosphate, and also ammonia levels are a lot more dynamic because of that, which corresponds a lot more to the nitrogen fixating parts. Auto Evo itself in general considers a lot more things like different toxin types, turning speed, sprinting speed, health, other more kind of important stats that have previously been neglected. There's been some more graphic customization options added, and just general more polishing of sound and graphics related options. So overall, pretty comprehensive update of Thrive. Now, should we go ahead and discuss what's next? Should we dive into a particular area you guys want to dive into, or? Well, I'll talk briefly about what we expect from the multicellular stage, the first few updates that will be likely. As we discussed before, the new stage is upon us, which is very, very unique in the history of this project. And as such, we need to come up with new concepts, mechanics, and other aspects of the game which are not necessary for the microbe stage by itself anymore. Obviously, the two stages are very well connected. They're both in the same they're built on the same sort of mechanics. So there's some polishing of microbe stage present features, which will probably be happening over the next few release cycles. But for the most immediate future, it's probably safe to predict that a lot of the kind of fundamentals of the multicellular stage will be ironed out, making sure that mutation point system works well, that you're not spending 7 minutes per organism to grow and reproduce and reach the editor. Make sure speed isn't unbearably slow. Make sure that everything works at a very basic level when abilities apply to a colony-wide effect. And overall, just making sure that our base is intact as we expand into this new stage. It's very exciting times, and there'll be a lot of probably brainstorming and conceptual discussions on the development forums especially. So if we have any input of sorts, if we have any sort of input we want to hear from the community, or if the community has any input towards us, we are definitely open to see what you guys want from the multicellular stage. We have our own concepts and plans, and obviously we have the same limitations as before, but it's a new horizon right now. So normally we'd be going towards the questions on the community forums and chat forums, but does anyone have anything they want to bring up before we reach that point?
I just noticed that on GitHub we've got the most reactions that there's ever been in, at least I've seen in any of the releases. I put a screenshot of that.
Is that what that's from?
Oh yeah.
That's nice.
It is. A lot of people have been paying attention to Thrive in general in the distance or in the background, just with the reputation of it being a game that will never be completed. So seeing a lot of progress made towards the completion of a stage, I think is really new to a lot of people.
Yes, I imagine so.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's kind of fun sometimes with these. Like, it's always cool to see some feedback and see how people actually follow the project. For instance, when I make these trailers, I have a habit of continuously checking the comments to see what people actually think, and I think this one has also had a bunch more reactions than they usually have. So I think it's kind of cool to see people engage with it.
Absolutely, yes. Hyperbolic, I see you unmute and then mute your microphone. Do you have anything to share?
Yeah, I was wondering if we wanted to talk about how
Show the
long we
video.
think the next stage will take to develop. You know, what are our guesses for how long it'll take to finish the 2.0 release for the multicellular stage?
What number was thrown out? Did someone say a year?
I want to scale the amount of content so that it can be done in a year.
Year? Okay, well, I think it could definitely be done, but the question is with other systems like Auto Evo and AI, if they can keep up with the changes.
We're certain it won't be another 10 years, though.
Oh,
I
absolutely
see
not.
that side.
Well, we
Isn't
can
Auto Evo like the biggest obstacle with this one? Oh, sorry.
we can probably get Auto Evo done within a year, or at least doing something. But I think we can follow the Thrive tradition of skipping the microbe AI, because there's still features from like 3+ years ago the AI doesn't know about, so we can make multicellular states and then wait 3 years before the AI is overdue.
Sure, why
I
not?
set a goal for myself to make sure the AI handles all of the skipped things. Unfortunately, that goal has to wait until I finish my goal of making sure Auto Evo uses all of the already skipped things.
Yeah. I think as to the new features of the multicellular stage, we can get it done in a year or a year and a half. Making sure everything's plugged in and fitting, that might take longer, but I don't see any sort of introduction of... It's more building on top of what we have than just introducing new entire systems, like, you know, a new planet generator, a new, you know, editor feature, a new, well, there's gonna be new editor features, but, you know, for example, a new environmental type, that sort of stuff, you know? But yeah, we'll see. Definitely won't be 10 years. Absolutely not. Okay, well, I guess we'll move on to questions we see from the community, unless anyone else has something.
We
to
have
bring up.
the usual priority questions and such. And also, did Hyperbolic want to show some like footage of the changes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there's the video.
Like, I can either play it like that small.
Well, because it also post in there.
Can
Or I can... Well, I can show it like this. This, like the... Like that.
it might be a bit small.
Wow, very nice.
Okay, hang on. I can kind of show it like that.
Well, anyway, I'll just talk about
There we go.
what this is. So this is the prototype for the world generator that we will be adding to Thrive. So this is its current state.
Huh, wow.
So I focused on having it go through all of the pretty much all the basic features that the world generator will have to have for all the stages. Wanted to make sure that it would work for all the stages and that we wouldn't have to redesign them all. Do a big redesign every time we get to a new stage and need more features.
Very nice.
Yeah, this is so cool.
Unfortunately,
Well,
Tim's not here to... I spent some time on that grass, but unfortunately he isn't here to see it.
What a shame.
Just gonna say world generator might be an understatement since we start looking at a galaxy as well, which is
So I
very
probably
cool.
spent more time on the level of detail management system for this. So really, it's it's built to handle objects at very large and small scales and be able to render the right amount of objects and detail. So right now there's a lot of pop-in, obviously. It's not very smooth between the levels, but that's something that can be added on later. Right now, this is the basic system.
Foundation.
So, yep.
Well, right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a planetary system through a prototype that lets you kind of store data at each part of the world and kind of load that or render it as needed, almost, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
right now, I was for this prototype, I initially focused more on the rendering side of things. So that's mostly just the visual aspects of it. But some of the important things that I've designed this world generator for is to be able to actually manipulate all of the data on the world. So to be able to change the population of, for example, a specific species of tree or something, and for it to all be smooth and continuous. So, and also that you can see the basic climate simulation on the planet. I've just gotten started with that, and we've talked a lot about biome classification on the forum. So we have a lot more to do on this, but I think it should be a good start at what we'll need for the future stages.
Yep. From my understanding, for anyone watching, it's basically kind of the baseline system from which every sort of data will be stored for the world. So the climate simulation, the spawning, what the world looks like, the playable scene of the world basically will evolve from this part, which is very awesome to look at and visualize through this manner.
Yeah, so glad to be able to show it off.
Yeah, it's very
Absolutely.
good.
Well,
Ooh.
Juzo Lens just joined, one of our theory members who also works on the speculative project attached to loading screens. If they wish to introduce themselves, they just joined, so I don't want to. Maybe they don't have their mic and everything ready, but
I mean, it's all set up, but man, my work was crazy today. That was fun.
yeah.
I'm here, thankfully.
Welcome.
And,
Uh,
sorry about that. decided to do a lot more work on the loading screen project because, well, I got to get at least like all the marine stuff personally ready by this time next year.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, I think we're ready to dive into the priority questions. If no one else has anything to mention. I don't see. I assume this is Doom Lightning, right? With the questions.
Yeah.
The Doom Lightning, one of our MVP Patreon supporters, who's been with the community forums for a while, always has quality questions for us, so we can begin diving through them now. Okay. Question 1 is, with 1.0 out, what is your vision or plan for the most important thing you will work on in the multicellular phase that is not individuals? I assume things that are I assume they're asking about things that aren't necessarily graphics improvements or such.
I imagine sort of like behind the scenes, maybe.
Yeah, which is
maybe,
pretty good because I don't think we are planning like graphics improvements for multicellular. Just mostly needs some new gameplay features and editor features.
Yeah, obviously we'd like better graphics, but there isn't sort of a need to overhaul, this whole like graphic system that is inherent to the multicellular stage mechanics. So yeah, but I mean, a lot of that is accessible in the development forums discussions for the multicellular stage so far. There isn't too much that is behind the scenes right now on the Discord that we don't share with the community. But I think two things we've realized is we need something to incentivize players to create tissue layers, and we need something to incentivize players to specialize themselves. So right now we're thinking of a mechanic to kind of give a decision-making process for what their overall body plan looks like, and another decision-making process when it comes to what goes inside your cell. And Rathalos I've discussed with you. I don't know if you have anything particular to bring up when it comes to mechanics for the multicellular stage.
Well, one high-level concept thing I will go into. I don't want to go into super details since this is just one question in the list, but I think what I've seen from the theory I've studied of how real-life development of multicellular organisms happened is you start with a colony of a bunch of identical cells. So you go from single-celled organisms to a big colony of identical cells, and from there you go to differentiating cells, getting different cell types, and from there you go to a more complex animal. So I think what we would like to see is for the multicellular stage to start with a very unspecialized blob of cells to go to something that has differentiated parts and ends up looking something like a more complex animal that is more than the sum of its parts. So gradual specialization.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we don't want to go into too much detail here because there's a lot of questions, but in general, we want to focus on 2 layers of decision making, as we mentioned before. So it's definitely something we can figure out and make fun, and I do think it will be pretty fun for the multicellular stage. It's going to be a lot more chaotic than the microbe stage, I imagine. So exciting stuff. We'll see what happens. Okay. Question number 2, and if anyone has anything to say before I move on, feel free to cut me off and mention their thoughts. How do you test the game's requirements to run? Do you use volunteers, or do you have a special way to test the setup of different computers? Well, you just heard a bit of that discussion earlier.
Yeah, we use hyperbolic and any community members who share feedback about the performance, but generally the approach is that if we add something that seems to give some performance difference even on our usual computers, then I usually ask to put in an option to disable it for people with weaker computers, but we don't really have a really rigorous process of testing low-end systems, so
Yeah, Hyperbolic has a setup that's basically a potato with the motherboard and some wires coming from it. So he provides good feedback on that.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about specifically how I test it, I usually test in the, I have a save that's in the mid to late game, and that's usually pretty representative of what we want to target a good experience for. Because the beginning of the stage, there's usually far less different microbes on screen, less objects. The game runs a lot better. So we always have to test near to the end of the game. And I also do some testing with multicellular as well, because that's even more intensive.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some things figured out now, thankfully, when it comes to seeing the very low end of tech that's available out there right now.
something that's pretty fun with this release, because I fixed the fun screen filter thing. So we get bug reports like this, that where did all of the Thrive pixels go? Or why the game is super green. Like I think these are pretty funny, even though I'm slightly annoyed. I have to explain to every single person that you have the fun screen filters on and didn't realize it, so go turn them off. But like you can simulate what Thrive would look like on really low end thing if it would actually be capable of running Thrive.
Yeah. Accessible in the graphics options.
Actually, in the miscellaneous options, there's the fun screen filters. So if someone sees their Thrive in 1.0 being very weird looking, then look there first.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, well, if we're good on that now, we can move on to question number 3. What was the most disappointing thing you worked on the game? So something that was a lot of effort to create, but I guess didn't work out as intended in the game.
Yeah, that's how
Ireland,
I would assume that question means. In terms of actual features, I'm having a hard time coming up with anything that was like actually a truly failure. Of course, many of the organelle upgrades are pretty niche, so like most players never find those, but those who do then can enjoy them even more. But if there's one thing that just came to mind, is that the mutation point system that I read it entirely. Like that was a pretty disappointing failure, because in the immediate next release I had to like redo the entire thing again. So that was quite a failure.
Remember Rubisco too. We wanted to implement a organelle that converted ATP back into glucose, I think. I wasn't very involved with that one, so with the design of that one, so it wasn't as impactful to me. But I remember there was a lot of conversation about it that ended up kind of patterning out. So
yeah, I guess if we also allow mentioning features that like had a bunch of design done on them but never got into the game, we have more options to choose from.
Yeah. Oh, well, it was always I always felt like it was gonna be awkward, but bioluminescent vacuoles, everyone talked about them for so many years, and in reality, they don't have much of an impact on the game so
Well,
far.
yeah.
So.
Well, I'm not personally disappointed, but like I had to eventually just implement the bare basics so that we can get it off the roadmap, because no one else seemed willing to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Stunt on the other cells. Okay. Number 4, how do you summarize the period until 1.0? The mock-up stage.
Yeah, that's
very
pretty good.
Yeah.
Actually, if someone
Very,
wants to, they can read the project history page. I see that team has been pretty busy on it, so it has gotten like multiple improved paragraphs this week.
Yeah, on the developer wiki, we have a project history page dedicated towards describing some of it. So you guys can look at that.
I'll
for
post a
very
link
in-depth analysis.
if anyone wants to go there.
Yeah, it's a very critical and in-depth analysis of the history of Thrive, upheld rigorously. But overall, I think Thrive is a very weird project, honestly, thinking about its history. Lots of quiet periods, lots of booms, lots of busts, and now, something pretty regular and pretty, sustainable moving forward with proper support from community and Patreon and purchasing, of course. So, but I think it's a very impressive and personal story when it comes to game development. A lot of people I see call it the crucible of game design or gameplay. It's a crucible of the game industry. I don't know how fully I follow that, but I do think it's a very kind of ambitious and dreamy concept and scope that we've progressed along pretty well. So pretty proud of that. Okay, moving on to question 5. Is there any behavior that exists in the real world or theoretically that you want the game to be able to run? I assume in the multi-server stage. One thing that comes to mind is Shoana flagellates, is that how they're pronounced? But the ancestors to animals, they're able to create, with their flagellum, they're able to create a current that allows them to create a giant current that inhales things. Kind of like sponges, almost. So that'd be very cool to see in the multi-server stage. I don't know what anyone else would like to see in it.
I guess I've always kind of hoped to see some sort of parasitic gameplay, like maybe organism being able to attach themselves to one another, stuff like that. But of course, it's never been like a necessary feature per se. But it's something, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, let's pick on people. Mirror Monkey, what would you like to see in the multi-server stage? If they're around a computer or mic.
Hello. So, what would I like to see in the multicellular stage? Good question. Now, since the multicellular stage is only the part where it's still 2D, I guess it's a boring answer, but Auto Evo. So I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of other kind of big cell clusters floating around, and I'm curious to see how the multicellular species will interact with the single cellular species. Yeah, and I think last time I checked on the forum, there was a discussion about maybe just running Auto Evo for the singular cellular life, not as often as for the multicellular life once kind of you reach the multicellular stage. So yes, it will be very interesting to see kind of the way the small kind of single cell species only become like a microbial mat or like a like a generic cloud of microbes which you feed on.
Yeah, that was a very good answer. Felt like a development forum post almost.
Thanks. A bit long.
Yep. No, it's all good. Who else can I pick? Devin, what would you like? Oh, Rathlos, I see you're unmuting your mic. Devin, you can go too.
Unmuted myself in preparation. Something I
Okay.
would like to see is what actually also some of the colonoflagellates that you mentioned before also can do is some of them can manage to capture some photosynthetic bacteria, like some algae or similar, and actually trap them in the middle of the cluster of colonoflagellates and
Yeah.
farm them. So
Kinda like
that's
sponge,
an
almost.
interesting form of symbiosis. So I think it will be fun to see, but it would require some specific mechanics that I'm not sure if we have the time for.
Yeah, that is interesting though. Definitely. Devin, were you gonna say something?
As I've just been sort of trying to think of what I'd like to see, and sort of everyone's been of like, yeah, like sort of how this is some like more sort of, I suppose, fine tuning of like hunting styles, I suppose, like parasitism, sort of like rotifers, putting things in to the mouths and such. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have anything before we move on? I feel like I picked on enough people for this question. I see Jerusalem's typing, so I'll move on to the next question. But after when they said into their text, we can read over that as well if it's an answer to the previous question. Oh, fine-tuning the way cell differentiation can affect the colony would be cool. Special parts that only a single cell type can use. Yeah, on the development forums, that kind of ties into the discussion me and Rathos had about either extracellular parts that are their own kind of like thing you add on to your colony, or unique multicellular organelles within each part. You can add within like a specific cell, and then maybe it will like interact with other parts around it to be stronger or weaker. So yeah, I think that's definitely possible. Okay. Let's go to question number 6. Yeah. In terms of cell differentiation, is there a very blurred division between how different living things behave? Between how fungi reproduce between generations, like gametospheres, which I'm not fully familiar with, and sporospora, spore-producing attached body, 2 cells like humans, or what tissues a living thing contains. For example, how deep is your vision to go into the matter of tissue differentiation? A pretty theory-dense question there. Oh, okay. Interesting, yeah. Obviously, I think the big kind of focus will be a split between more. Rathos has unmuted, and he has more of an understanding of the theory than me. So let's see what he has to say.
Some of these terms I'd have to look up to be sure about them. But one thing you see at the end where you ask about what different types of tissues a living thing contains. For example, you have a parenchyma, which is like a pretty common body tissue in plants, and of course animals will have different things. One thing we want to do is to base the tissues again on the designed cells inside the body. So we also again use the design of the previous stages. But that also means in the end that we're not going to say, all right, this is definitely this existing tissue that exists in plants. It's just like this is a structural tissue, or this is a support tissue, kind of like a bone. And it just depends on how the previous stages went for you, and during the stage on what exactly that looks like. So in that case, there will not be the exact differences between different tissues that exist between different types of species in real life. For example, there are sponges which have a kind of jelly inside them. Meanwhile, jellyfish also have a kind of jelly inside them. In real life, we call these two different things. Within Thrive, you would just say, yeah, this is jelly. It doesn't matter the exact differences in how it's formed. Functionally for us, that's the same. So I don't think that's worth to differentiate in Thrive exactly.
Yeah, kind of goes to in the markup stage, people might ask if this metabolism might be included, this metabolism might be included. Where our answer is, while we would like more, while it could be cool to see more metabolic diversity, we feel satisfied with what we have because we feel like we have a representation of, for example, autolithotrophy and then chemolithotrophy, and then heterotrophy based on non-organic compounds, that sort of stuff, So, good points there. And also with the multicellular stage, it's this weird kind of abstraction of the period between being a small organism that's multicellular and a big organism that's multicellular. So, the exact, details of tissue differentiation at a bigger scale might not be present in this stage. And also things that are represented in bigger stages, which might not be that important for small organisms, might be overrepresented in this stage, just because we might not have the technical capability to represent later stage organisms like this, but we would like to still abstract it in a way. So it's a whole conversation. It's a good question, but that's ultimately the design question of the stage itself.
Also, one quick thing also on how complicated real life can get. Now, us animals are made up of multiple cells, of course, and usually our cells divide immediately after they grow. So you constantly are made up of many cells. Fungi are also multicellular, but they're weird because what happens in fungi, like your mushrooms and things, a lot is they first grow very, very long cells with many, many nuclei inside them. And then at some point when it's convenient, they might divide. And that's just not something we can handle with the game design in Thrive, I think. So if we have something like a fungus, it will also just be multicellular in the same way that an animal or plant is. Otherwise, that kind of level of detail and differences is not something worth doing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Unless someone has anything else to contribute to that, we can move on to the icebreaker question they have, which is, what is your favorite food? What's y'all's favorite food? Don't be shy.
All of them.
All of them?
Same time, or?
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go for a nice simple mac and cheese. Nothing too complicated, but especially homemade as well. Homemade is always good.
Jizzle Lens mentions goldfish crackers and Cheez-Its. So they like cheese, I assume. Hi, Elena, what's your favorite food?
I don't really have one.
Oh, fair enough.
Tomatoes.
So much. Oh.
Tomatoes?
Sorry. Tomatoes and mozzarella is for me something just so easy and quick and so good. You can do it every day.
How Italian?
For me, it's usually more about if the particular version of the dish I get on my plate is a well-cooked one. or not. I used to think I really hate shellfish, and then I happened to had a very good one time, and I realized, oh no, it's actually not bad. It is good if cooked properly.
Hexapod says curry, Indian, Chinese, or Thai curry. Exclamation mark. Very nice. Oh, Hexapod Philosopher is one of our graphics artists, by the way. He's been a bit less active recently for recent releases, but has been speaking up recently a lot more. So expect perhaps some stuff from him in the future. I will say my favorite food is this dish called mlokhia. It's an Arabic food. It has I don't know what the English translation would be almost, but it's kind of like this rice and green leaf that tastes very good with garlic, lemon, and some meat involved with it. So, yeah.
Sounds really nice.
Thank you.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah. So I'll type it in the chat, I guess, at some point in the future if anyone wants to see it. Rice salad, maybe, or like spinach, rice, goop, or whatever. That's what I've heard before. Okay. That would be the priority questions. We spent about 30 minutes on them, so we hope you feel very prioritized in Doom Lightning, and we thank you very much for your constant support with all Thrive releases.
Yeah, and we look forward to eventually getting another VIP patron who wants to ask questions.
Absolutely. Which, by the way, you can become a VIP patron by donating to Thrive on Patreon. Let me, I don't know if anyone has just the link off the top of your head.
Post the
like that,
link.
but yeah, I'm looking for it right now.
While Deus looks for that, I think we could answer the first live chat questions.
Posted. Though I realize they can't click it from the
Okay,
live stream chat.
I'll copy it there.
There we go. But yeah, we appreciate any sort of contribution you guys can provide us. We've only come so far because of your loving support and your contributions. It will allow us to sustain this current pace of development into the future, which, you know, with funding, I think we can achieve many wonderful things with Thrive in our scope.
I think you said some keywords, so it's the usual time to tell people that they can also join the team. And as Thrive is open source, you can just directly go to our GitHub if you just want to do a little bit of help in the game development. For example, fixing a bug that has been bothering you for years. That would be very, very good first contribution to the game if you have the skills.
Absolutely, yes. You know, this is an open source project. You can see all the code available on our GitHub. So if you see anything you would like to contribute and you have the capabilities, let's, you know, feel free 100% to join. Send an application. Okay, we'll go to text chat questions, and then we'll go into a community question or post, I say. I'm starting from the top. The first question that Raphaelis grabbed early on in the chat from Fizz4P4W. I'm wondering if some late stages could have other player content in them, like land animals. Will they also evolve from the start of the game, or maybe space age with other players' planets? Well, the base, since we're scientifically accurate, everything on your planet would have to come from something on that planet and evolve. So populating other organisms from other worlds would be kind of, you know, awkward to fit in with our scope. In the future stages with space, that could be more of an option. You know, it's a different world, that sort of stuff. I won't say it's planned.
I mean,
it could be more of a
this
conceptual.
gets asked quite often, and I've explained that for the space stage, we most likely will need to bundle a bunch of planets with the game. Because simulating fresh planets when you explore would be way too slow. So, yeah, as Deus mentioned, putting species earlier into the game is basically not possible with the Thrive evolution simulation, but we could have a bunch of player-made planets that can appear in the space stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we'll have to see what space stage gameplay looks like in the first place to see where that fits in. But yeah. Another question from the chat from Myriad Color CM. So when the multicellular stage is done, will it be called 2.0 then? Yep, absolutely. Cool. We can move on to our first community question. And I'll go, I'll read the post as a whole and count that as one question. And then we go back to the two questions from the livestream chat. Kefkor asks, with 1.0 released, I would imagine that it would have been seen as unthinkable 10 years ago. But I thought of an unconventional question, so apologies if I write it out maniacally. Do you see if the same game design principles of Thrive 1.0 could apply 10 years ago with hardware limitations at the time? Or is it a result of the gradual accumulation of these changes that make it present Thrive that wouldn't be possible in an early situation? Is there anything we have now that is kind of would not be possible with tech from 10 years ago, I guess you could say, 2016? I don't think so, right?
I don't think hardware is that much different because like 10 years ago, like people didn't try to play modern games on 2003 hardware, whereas people try to play Thrive with 2011 hardware still. So I think we are basically limited by the same technology now as we would have been 10 years ago. That's kind of funny, but that's the way I see it.
I found that Thrive runs pretty well on a Pentium 4 if it's multi-core. So that's from 2006 or before. So
good. Well, Mr. 42 just joined. I don't know if they have a mic with them, but they're one of our. They're very involved with outreach, and they oftentimes organize community events whenever those happen. No mic today. Okay, that's unfortunate. That's okay though. All good. But we appreciate you joining for 1.0. We're just going through the community forum questions right now. Question number 2 from Kefkor. More retrospective questions. If you had the ability, or the devs of the time had the knowledge and know-how of Thrive today, the weaknesses and strengths of development, how would you be able to change Thrive so that the development time or work on the project as such would not have taken as long as it was 10 years ago? Assume you're back in 2015 or something and you just sign up working for Thrive voluntarily with all the free time. For example, see that the engine was switched 2 times. Would it be best to stick with a direct change to Godot, for example, to make things smoother? What were we doing in Thrive 10 years ago?
All of the old I had just joined for the first time and did some Ogre graphics rendering 2.0 fixes that I had also done for my own engine. So I saw that Thrive was having the same issues, so I fixed those as my first contribution. And well, I think it was 2016 when like all of the programmers before me basically left. But 2015 still saw some activity, so almost 10 years ago it was when like we basically lost all of the old programmers and the project became pretty inactive.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I remember there was about a year or so where Thrive was basically dead. I remember. And then there was a engine change. And from that point onward, it was kind of very slow and then ramped up, and now we have full-time development. So
yeah, it definitely would have been faster if we directly switched to Godot. but considering that that was 5 years before we switched to Godot, like the engine would have been in much rougher shape back then, actually.
Yeah, Godot was released 2014.
Yeah, so yeah, it was. We could have technically switched, but like, would you actually switch to an engine that was just 1 year ago released to the public? Would you trust that?
Yeah.
And there were undoubtedly a ton of issues because like the Godot engine was originally an in-house engine, but they publicly released it in 2014, so they would have had just a year to have random people use their engine. So I think all of the different game types and etc. would have been harder to make back then. So we probably would not have considered switching to Godot back then, because it was just 1 year old at that point. So even if we went back then and decided to do one final engine switch immediately, might not have been Godot back then.
Yeah. I mean, we still would have ultimately been constrained by the times, in many ways at that point. When it comes to design, I wasn't even a community member of Thrive up in that point. But if I somehow was a developer back then, I think I would have stressed a lot more focus on the environment changing first and foremost. But then again, that depends on systems that were developed before we talked about the environment being changed and dynamic.
Looking at the
it's a tough
release
question.
history,
It's a good question, but it's tough.
Godot 3.0 released in 2018, and before that I've heard that the engine was much more primitive, so we probably could not have decided to use Godot before 2018. And it also didn't have C# support until then. And it didn't have a good physics engine. So like, even if 2015 we knew about the eventual move to Godot, we literally would have had to just wait 3 years. So yeah, some things could have been done different, but Godot would not have been ready earlier, even if we knew about the future.
I don't know who played the trumpet noise, but that was well timed.
I think someone joined the voice chat just to play it.
Yeah, Haman Productions just joined that and left. So, he's one of our testers. They're one of our testers. Yeah, they just joined briefly. I don't know where they are now.
Our only tester as well.
Yeah. So if you want to become a tester for Thrive and you're talented at breaking the game and unfortunately finding a lot of bugs, you're definitely more than welcome to join.
We often have people come in asking, well, or at least in the chat or in the forum saying, oh, I would like to help with the project, but, I can't program or do anything like that. And I say, to be a tester, you don't need any of those things. You just need to play and break the game. And what you do need to be able to do is accurately tell us how you broke the game. But that's all you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's already good. But like, of course, a really good tester is going to be available within 24 hours of new testing needs. Can pinpoint if some new game change is going to blow everything up. Of course, finding later on that something has gone awfully wrong is pretty good, but like truly worth their weight in gold, testers can offer like very timely feedback on the changes as they are being made.
Yep. Okay, well, I think that's enough for that question. We'll go through 2 more questions from the live chat, and then we'll go back to the community forums. Okay. Okay. Frizz4 P4W asks, will the colony part be changed much, or is that more of a single cellular part than multicellular part? The colony part, I assume the binding part itself will be changed much. That's actually a very good question, because we've been having discussions about that, you know, the starting point and progression to the multicellular stage. So I think that's something we should try to get an answer for as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think you're talking probably also about the binding, the colony mechanics as a whole.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
probably we do want to look at that a little bit. Also, exactly the transition from there to the multicellular stage. Right now, it's basically you place the binding agents, and you can then immediately go form a colony of 5 cells, and that's enough to instantly transfer to the multicellular stage. To me, that doesn't sound exactly right for how it should work in the end, but
I agree.
So I would say this is kind of a part of the multicellular design, because it's part of the transition.
Yeah. There's kind of two thoughts to it right now, I think. One is a thought where you add parts at the end of the microbe stage that give you better benefits towards binding. And then two is kind of an interpretation where you have to bind with other cells, but each bind costs more energy consecutively. So binding with one cell costs 2 ATP, binding with 2 costs like 5, so on and so on. So I think, in my head, I think I'm leaning towards the, former, with perhaps some sort of parts or something, but we'll have to discuss that for sure. We can see how discussion in development forms a bit. So yeah, good question. Okay, Builder Boy 93, who has been on numerous Thrive streams. I remember him. I'm wondering what made you guys decide to declare this release 1.0. Theoretically, you could have added more to the microbe stage indefinitely. So how/why did you decide to finish it now? Because scope creep is the biggest enemy of Thrive. Well, I guess manpower is, but scope creep is something we have to actively manage day by day.
Yeah, if we just infinitely accepted community suggestions, we would never complete the microbe stage, and then some people who would forever ridicule the game online about never getting out of the first stage, when it is in fact the people online who request more and more stuff to be added, which pushes back when it's done. And I think it was 2 or 3 years ago when we logged in the microbe roadmap, so that was actually when we decided roughly when the microbe stage release would be.
Yeah, we have a roadmap. We finished all of, 90% of the items on the roadmap. The rest we accepted as kind of, we can roll forward because they have tough conditions to meet. Now, there are things that I think can be improved with the microbe stage, but those aren't, the answers to those are found a lot more in very, very tiny tweaks and balancing changes, which I'm going to focus on at some points, than the addition of, 5 new mechanics. Adding more mechanics would have a lot less marginal benefit than polishing things, really making things well together well. And ultimately, this stage, the game of Thrive is in context of other stages. You can't just define the entire game as one. As cool as it sounds, you can't pretend like each stage should be a complete 100% fully detailed, fleshed out experience by itself. They depend on other stages, and they depend on the progression through stages. So, to answer your question, the roadmap. But yeah. Okay, I say we move towards the community post question. Ath31415, who's one of our community power posters, asks, do you feel satisfied yet with your work on Thrive? I feel pretty satisfied. Do you guys feel satisfied?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think it's become a really fun game. with a lot of possibilities. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I was nervous leading up to 1.0 about the stage of the game, but looking back, I think we have a pretty fun game in our hands. Pretty good.
I would say I also feel, I mean, if the question is specifically about what I did for it, I would say I also feel very satisfied. I mean, if you, for example, I worked to make chemoreceptors, which were already in the game for a long time, actually be used by the Evo system. So whenever I see now any kind of other cell swimming around with a chemoreceptor, you think, yes, I did that. I made that happen. Which is fun.
Yeah, you're a designer. Well, you're more involved in, deeper things than I am when it comes to programming. But when you see your first feature kind of implemented in a game, working well, that's always great satisfaction. Like with me, the endosymbiosis thing, I kind of helped create a lot of that concept, and seeing that in game was very cool to see. So, you're doing great work on audio, Yuval. Yeah. Anyone else have anything to contribute before we move on to the next one? Okay. Number 2 from 31415. How is the monetary situation like currently?
I guess it's time again for me to talk about this. So basically, since last asked this on stream like 3 months ago, I think the situation is largely unchanged. So in the latest sales numbers, we have like about 3 times the sales volume than a normal week we would have. But you need to consider that while we did release 1.0, Thrive is also currently on sale, and there's the Steam holiday sale going. So how much that affects things and how much 1.0 affected things, like we won't really know until the numbers stabilize by like late January. Then what if the new normal level is higher than it was before, then we're doing better, but we are still roughly in the 30 to 40% deficit each month. So situation still roughly the same, running out of money slowly. But we'll see early next year if the 1.0 release has gathered like a staying amount of more activity around Thrive and more sales and so on. It's pretty hard to tell right now with the other effects going on.
Yeah, which is why it's very important. We ask for contributions, and we ask for spreading of awareness of Thrive. Again, I assume that 1.0 by itself wouldn't be an immediate boost, but the fact that the first stage of Thrive is completed can be a very long-term beneficial thing. And, the internet needs to know that the first stage of Thrive has been completed. So share word with your friends, with people on the internet, with your different communities that the first stage of Thrive has been completed. It could mean very beneficial things to this community and this project. Thrive is a non-profit, so we don't need excessive profits to continue development, but we do need more inflow than we do need outflow, just with how non-profits work. So we do have, the way it works is if we have retained funds, we can match with those funds, but we can't just continue to bleed what we have retained.
Yeah, and well, if we get much excess income, of course, that means that we could jump to the second level of having 2 employees hired to work on Thrive.
Absolutely, yes. If we have enough funding for one developer, I feel very confident in how Thrive is doing. but obviously 2 would be amazing as well. So
Yeah, literally
spread the
double
word,
the
and we appreciate
progress.
any. Yeah, absolutely, which would be tremendous. Okay, so that's 31415. Their question. We'll go through 2 more questions from the live stream. Let's see. Where? Okay. Frizz4 P4W asks, I wonder if endosymbiosis would be a thing in multicellular. Had organisms glued other cells to themselves and incorporate their genes on such a scale in nature? Well, endosymbiosis by itself as a feature can happen really as long as I assume any organism has that ability to engulf organisms, and a smaller organism has the ability to evolve towards the internal environment of the microbe. So, well, I'm not sure if it happens on a planet like that. It is technically capable, and like Rathos mentions, there are cases where organisms like Goanna flagellates have very cohesive symbiotic relationships with photosynthesizers, for example, to get extra glucose. And I know it happens at a larger scale with sponges oftentimes, so it is possible, yeah.
Yeah, the other examples are, we have the hydrothermal vents biome in Thrive, the patch type. In real life, we have tube worms that stick out of the seafloor. And they also eat the hydrogen sulfide that's coming off of the vents, but not directly. They have chemosynthetic bacteria living inside them that do that, which is a form of endosymbiosis. And also peas and other plants can have nitrogen-fixing bacteria living inside them that make ammonia out of nitrogen gas. So this is definitely a very common thing in real life. So it would be nice to have it to some degree still. One thing I've also considered is because evolution in Thrive can be kind of random. You might have some rare cases where you reach the macroscopic stage or you become aware, but there's no real plants living in the world. It will be nice if instead some animal can just pick up algae by endosymbiosis and then turn into something that can take the place of a plant. As a random thought, but
yeah. So to answer your question, yes, it is possible, and there could be other possibilities involved with that feature. So we'll see. Do we answer? Hold on, wait. I forgot where I was. Oh no, we only answered one question from the chat. Arbuz 228-E2C. These are some really in-depth names. Will the regular person, not an anime expert, be able to create various organ systems for the creature? Yes. Will there be any templates for them? Not sure. Do you already know how it will work? No. Even without telling you how in detail it will work, we don't want this game to be extremely unapproachable to that extent, by any means. And for the macroscopic, the focus will be a lot more on the external parts of your organism than your internal parts. So, not to say at all that it's an afterthought, but, if there's any sort of detailed kind of thinking, we want most of that focus to be on, limbs and appendages and external parts rather than, what the cells of your lung looks like and how physically possible it is,
Yeah, kind of. We already had the discussion about macroscopic that maybe you just drag some organ systems into your body metabols to activate them without designing the internal structure. So that's already kind of designed as a simplified.
Yeah.
Here in the microbe stage right now, you also don't, you just pick a mitochondria and you place it in your cell. You don't need to design the mitochondria itself.
Yeah, well, actually, some people have
exactly.
suggested that why can't they design mitochondria? Why do we have
You have to
pre-made organelles?
endosymbiosis. Yep. But yeah, any sort of kind of detail with the organ system, it can be handled a lot more kind of system-based rather than, drawing out your blood vessels, for example, So, yeah, you won't need some anatomy degree to understand what's going on, any of the, stages of the game. Okay. Moving back with the community forum questions from Animalia. How long do you think the development of the multicellular stage will last? Well, we discussed this, but probably a year to a year and a half. Yeah. I don't know if anyone has any different thoughts about that question and the 15 minutes that's been since, but yeah, a year and a half or 1 year to a year and a half. And then 2, have you decided the art style for the 3D stages now that they're much closer than before? No, which actually, we could really benefit from a concept artist too. We have great pieces overall. We have great pieces of art for specific scenes, but as to kind of the art style as a whole, that is kind of up in the air and more abstract. We could really benefit from cohesive design discussion on what it can look like. Mirror Monkey, actually, I remember they had a post a while ago on the development forums describing inorganic material in the macroscopic stages, so that could be interesting. And I know Hyperbolic kind of looked at that somewhat. So, but as to active concept design, that's something we don't have right now.
I mean, the design document, it was more so about, I would say, the kind of coming a bit from the natural science kind of direction of the environment, if that makes sense. Like, I was mostly focusing on what kind of different stones or minerals there are and how we want to group them and how we want to maybe, let's say, simplify all the sedimental stones into one section, or then how do we want to differentiate that? But then kind of on the level of the stylization of it, that's another question. I mean,
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think there is more visual information on this until now than kind of written information, but for sure that would be a very good idea to make some design documents detailing the visual style and how it would kind of flow from the microscopic to the macroscopic. What would be kind of the differences and the common denominators.
Yeah, absolutely. I could probably create a basic post on the development forums for that, discussing what kind of roughly we would need. Obviously, someone with more of a graphics artist background will be better suited for that conversation, but I can at least throw something up on the forums discussing some questions and that sort of stuff. But yeah, that answered that question, so we'll do 2 more from the live stream chat. Let's see. Frizz4P4W asks, will we be able to re-implement googly eyes for the macroscopic creatures or spaceships? Re-implement googly eyes for the mod, I assume? Well, for macroscopic creatures, the idea is you could make the googly eyes yourself. So maybe something like that for the macroscopic. For spaceships, I think that'd be a mod by itself. So, no. And then Bob asks, will you guys make something to replicate mass extinction events? We kind of, we have environmental events, though I think they are a bit underwhelming and uninfluential on the player. We can, for example, oxygenation event. that was a very pivotal moment in the development of life forms on Earth that took many things and opened up new niches. And Thrive right now, because of how we balance the oxygen tolerance, that really isn't that much of a challenge to get used to. So, and the global oxygenation event can be, we hear from some players, underwhelming and unimpactful. So there's that thing, which also is very influential. Yeah, those can. The good thing is that those don't require whole new overhauls of the mechanics. They can be tweaked with balance changes, hopefully. But yeah, the hope is that we can balance those to be more impactful. Oh, Mr. 42 mentions the Ice Age was good, so looks like there's some diverse feedback on that.
Well, I mean, I would first ask the players who felt it was underwhelming if they were playing as a plant. Because I think the 50% reduction in sunlight is like pretty harsh on all photosynthesizers.
I know at least 3 people, 3 pieces of feedback where they were playing as plants and they said it didn't really affect them that much. So I have heard from that part of it, but we probably need bigger discussions. Like,
yeah, I mean, I would
maybe
kind
of
assume those players are the same who talked about a few years ago, like that the game is way too easy, and then we tuned the game so that those like hardcore fans don't say it is too easy. But then for the average player, the difficulty spike was pretty immense. So I'm kind of wondering again if because so few people say that the event is like no problem at all, is that they are the hardcore pro Thrive players who can play on extreme difficulty all day.
Yeah, I think I'll ask people in the community forums, make a general forum post. Obviously, that's not representative because if you're more of a fan of Thrive, you're probably more experienced and you're more likely to be on the forums, but we'll see.
Well, if you ask also on the community Discord, there's a lot more casual people there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, so I can poll that later. Okay, I think that was 2 questions from the Livestream chat. Yeah, okay. We'll go to a question from Haman Productions, who's a developer, so ideally they wouldn't need to ask questions through the community forums, but let's see. When will the evil hex coal appear? The hex coal everywhere. I assume that's the second, that's the new design for the organism, that is kind of a soft reboot of the logo. What was there any change with that? Anything developed with the new kind of organism that Mr. 42 created? It's kind of everywhere now, right?
I think Iman is just joking around a bit. If you read the second question, I think that's pretty clear.
Oh, well, I'm not going to read the second question, so we'll move on to past that one.
Yeah, I was actually suggesting we can skip Iman's questions.
Yeah,
entirely.
No one talk about the second question. Okay. We'll talk about Tabat's question. Looking back, how long do you think it would have taken to complete the micro stage if the team had the same resources and people as today? If we knew from before what the gameplay would look like, or if we were starting from scratch creating concepts, because that's two different.
Well, I think the same resources just means as many people now as we would have as many people back then as we have now. I think we already answered what would happen if we got transported back to 2015. So maybe this time, if we assume micro stage development starts in 2020 when we last did the engine change and thus had to touch every single line of code. So I'd say that if we got the resources we have now, we probably would have at least got 1 year of the roadmap, maybe even 2. but like not any more than that.
Done early.
Yeah, like I would imagine
Yeah.
that we would have reached 1.0 somewhere in like 2024.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. We still have the manpower limitations, so but we'd have a better idea of what we're going towards, almost, and we can maybe better focus on certain things and less focus on other things. So, yeah, I agree. Maybe 1 or 2 years, 2 years at the most, kind of reducing the speed or time it would take. Okay, and number 2, what are your expectations for the development of the next stage? Pretty. I'm not sure what
I think
aspect.
we kind of answered this already, so maybe we'll skip this question.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go to 2 questions from the live stream chat at this point. Hold on. Okay. Builderboy 983 asks, last time I asked this, you guys seemed undecided, but now that you finished the microbe stage, have you guys decided whether or not to use voxels for the world generation system yet? Hyperbolic, I think, might be better.
It kind of looked
answer
like
this question,
Devon is not using voxels, so maybe that's the design we are going to get. Though I would still like to make sure that we can have like underground dens and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In our stage.
Yeah, that's the main benefit of voxels. But it really adds a lot of overhead. Going from basically a 2D sheet to a full 3D, amount of data that you have to store and generate. It's a pretty significant increase. But we should be able to create things like caves with not too much difficulty. I mean, it'll take some time to add features like that in, but it's certainly possible to add, and it would allow us to have a really efficient world generator to be able to keep it 2D places. So, like for example, Minecraft, the worlds are, pretty large in terms of their file size. And in Thrive, especially in the space stage, we might have a lot of worlds that the player is able to look at.
Yeah,
and we don't want to.
In terms of the voxel system, I was thinking that if we used voxels, then we would very aggressively mark chunks as not modified, so that we don't have to write them to disk.
Yeah, there is, we could definitely, it would definitely be possible to go with a voxel system. I think No Man's Sky uses 3D voxels, and
it does.
Their worlds aren't full size, but they're pretty large. And they've ended up with a pretty good system, but it does add a lot of extra effort that has to be put into it. So who knows? Maybe one day we'll look into that more.
I think for creating tunnels and that sort of stuff, we don't need a fully kind of, dynamic environment for an organism to dig into. We can just represent it through kind of either like, a simple hole on the ground that teleports you or obscures you under the ground, and you can kind of create like a shape by itself almost. But yeah, I don't think we need like a whole dynamic sculpt system that would be represented through voxels, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, we can likely do without, but certain game features will then need various workarounds.
Yeah,
we'll definitely want to look at the full trade-off picture, or like we are fully locked into the choice that do we want voxels or not. Luckily, we don't don't need that for the multicellular stage yet, so we can focus on multicellular design issues first.
Yeah. Okay. Was that one question we answered from? That was one, I think, from the live stream chat, right?
I think that was one.
Okay.
At least
How many questions
it
are
was
left
a
in the
long
community
one.
forums?
I think about 8 or so. Or I'll count the
Okay,
posts. So we have
so-
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 posts left. And we have some new
So I
people
noticed-
coming up who asked questions, so maybe we want to skip some less
Yeah.
interesting questions if possible.
Okay, I think we focus right now on getting through the community forum questions, and then we'll go through the live stream chat questions after we finish that, just because we're running not fully short on time, but less time. So okay, let's see. Question. I'm looking at a question from Watermelon. 1, will you thrive? Yes, we will. 2, what may be the potential benefits of switching to Godot 5, Godot 6? Are they adding things? Is it easy to switch? Is there a Godot 5?
Well, not yet, but I would assume that in the overall Thrive history there will be a Godot 5. And well, I would assume that a similar thing happens as with Godot 4, that they do a bunch of improvements, which some are pretty nice for Thrive, and some are pretty key. But the bigger reason why we switched to 4 is that eventually Godot 3 will stop receiving updates, and as we are still working on Thrive in 20 years, we have to be on an engine version that is not going to be abandoned then, because then we are pretty screwed. So even though the changes are pretty difficult, it took a month and then multiple releases of small problems here and there, so to jump to the Godot 4. And in fact there's still at least a few issues, and the scene loading error that happens when you play Thrive too long, I think that's a new engine bug in Godot 4. So there's still issues, but for the future of Thrive, I think we need to follow the engine releases, even though they are painful to switch to.
Yeah, I agree. Just to make sure we're on top of things. So the answer is there will be benefits, but we just don't know them right now because it's not released. Okay, Cast96 asks, so what was the hardest feature to make for the markup stage? Well, I assume the mutation point system and the compound cloud system are the hardest things to deal with overall.
Well, yeah, I guess technically they are the hardest single thing to unplan, but actually, again, I have to say that the engulfing system where objects get attached to your cell and animated into you, that's literally the most nightmare system, because while it seems simple on the surface, and I managed to port it to the ECS architecture, it's had bugs since then. Just today I read a forum bug report where there's a bunch of log errors about stuff happening or going wrong in the engulfing system, which basically always happens, but it's not prioritized to be fixed because, well, the original person who made the attaching system left and hasn't come back to fix it, and no one else has jumped in. So as they aren't totally game breaking bugs, I haven't also fixed them, so it's a constant source of bugs in the gameplay, but they aren't super serious. But still, that's the hardest feature because it seems to impossible to get it to be problem free.
Yeah, there we go. Also, it's kind of crazy to hear what was the hardest feature to make for the markup stage now. I just realized that. So, exciting times. 2, what might be the hardest thing to do for multicellular stage? We still don't know all the concepts that'll go into it yet.
Yeah. I would
But
estimate that basically similar things as the microbe states, that like the multicellular growth, because the physics bodies can get stuck in stuff and cause issues like that. And also the microbe AI or spawning system, that's kind of seems like it'll have pretty tricky corner case bugs. And of course the cell positioning, which is a pretty core thing, and people have been reporting for years about the non-obvious ways the final cell layout gets calculated for the player. Of course, I only consider that a hard thing because literally no one has agreed to work on that and improve it. So people are still criticizing my extremely quick and dirty method to do it when I was doing all of the prototypes in quick succession. So if someone actually tried, it might be pretty easy to fix the problems.
I think conceptually, what might be difficult to deal with is the fact that it's kind of an abstraction of this weird period of life's history where the theory is, 1, pretty dense, and 2, not fully settled. So understanding what might be realistic at one scale, what might not be realistic at this scale, what we would want to represent in this scale, even if it's not fully scale accurate, that might be tough for us to deal with conceptually. But it's a balance we'll have to kind of figure out, I think. And I think we will figure it out. Okay. If no one else has anything to contribute, we'll go on to a question from Big Bo P. Huh. 1, will there be a pizza party? No plans. 1, actually, how good or bad have the last 10 years of Thrive's development been? We kind of answered that, but I think, pretty good considering the point we are right now, I would say.
Yeah, if the
More good
last
than bad,
10 years
on average.
hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here talking about having
Yeah,
finished
exactly.
1.0.
So yeah, we reached 1.0. I think that went pretty well. 2, I personally fear a sudden drop-off in new recruits after 1.0. It could be seen as too daunting. What do you think will happen? Well, actually, I think we'll still be in multicellular stage, so the same rules apply. But I wonder if after the 2D stages are done, I would assume it would be more visually appealing and kind of more traditional gameplay. So I assume it could be a bit easier for people to join, but I don't know how programming, that sort of stuff works. So.
Well, usually people say that working on 3D games is much more difficult. And for that reason, many people recommend doing 2D games first or doing 3D. So this is actually kind of warranted that, when people hear that we are working on the 3D stages of the game, it might be more difficult to do something, but I guess we'll see how big the effect is. But I can kind of see the reasoning behind this question, that if a game developer hears that here's this 3D open world game looking for people to help develop it, it sounds much more menacing than just a cute little 2D cell game that you might be able to help with.
Yeah, that's true. I think, well, to me at least, the animal larger stages kind of are more kind of visually and descriptively appealing than kind of the microbe stage, representing this very small area. So I think ultimately we'll have to see what the popularity of Thrive is around that time, I think. Okay. If no one else has any other questions or answers to that, Domain 2KTR is how do you plan to increase? First question is how do you plan to increase funding? We depend a lot on Patreon contributions and outreach. So we would like to, reach out to creators, YouTube players, Twitch streamers, that sort of stuff, and from there, hopefully the good news of 1.0 kind of really helps to generate more funds in the future.
Yeah. Basically, the more people that know about Thrive, the more potential patrons and people buying on Steam we have. So that's like the main way we can increase the funding. And well, I do have some other ideas, but about potential things to try. But a Kickstarter wouldn't be one, and of course it would be extremely difficult for us to get a publisher. So we are quite limited due to the nature of the game and what's the finished Thrive that everyone would be pretty happy about, that we want to work towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Prior periods where we really received a lot of inflow were around the time when a lot of popular YouTubers made videos about it. So if we have another kind of session with like that where it's the big there's a micro stage complete now, let's strike on Thrive, that'd be really, really beneficial to the project. So yeah, reach out to as many YouTubers as you want or as you can, and let them know that Thrive 1.0 was complete. Okay. Question number 2 is how much faster would development be if you could hire at least 3 to 5 employees? I assume 3 to 5 times as fast, almost.
Yeah, we would still be a pretty small team, so I would assume the speed would scale pretty much linearly. Once you get to like over 10 people or 15 people, then you start having communication bottlenecks and might need to split the team into functional units or something. But like five employees more, so 6 in total, I think it would be still very small team energy, and thus pretty much 6 times the development speed as one developer.
Yeah, I think one thing. Go ahead.
Of course, we'll need to make sure that not all of those 6 people get into a heated forum discussion about which features to prioritize for the stage, because that would slow things down a lot.
I think if we have funding, one really beneficial person to hire would be some sort of part-time or affiliated social media expert or something like that.
Yeah, that would be very
just to
good.
really help focus on. So that's like something that might not fully increase like development speed immediately, but could have really strong rewards long term. So
yeah, but if we got like a really good marketer who was able to bring in 3 times as much money as they cost, then that's 2 free developers we got. Or 1, but basically there would be like a multiplier of money. By hiring 1 person, we actually get 2 programmers.
Yeah,
double the efficiency of the money.
Compounded. Yeah, okay. So we'll move on to the next question if no one else has anything to say.
Guys, I gotta go, but thanks for having me. Congratulations again on the release, and bye. Have fun streaming.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you very much for joining us.
Thank you for
good to hear from you.
Yeah, farewell.
I got a microphone.
Welcome again.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so Ada from Thrivemas says they haven't posted it on the forums for a while. But question 1 is, will surface area / volume ratio mechanics make it into the markup stage if they prove to be successful in multicellular? Well, for anyone who doesn't know, this is in reference to a concept in the multicellular stage where instead of the microbe shape affecting surface area and volume, it's just the shape of the colony and the arrangement. I do think that's something to pursue in the multicellular stage. I don't think it would be necessary to see in the microbe stage because that could be one, because I think we would like that to be a unique mechanic to the second stage, and two, because we want to slowly ramp up our introduction of advanced mechanics too, so it's not just in the first stage people deal with a lot. And also, the scales kind of are weird on the microbe stage, where starting as a 1 hex organism, you're gonna inherently have more surface area, and it's going to be harder to kind of calculate that surface area and balance it well as your organism expands. Whereas with the multicellular stage, shapes are a bit more kind of predictable, and there's a better potential for balancing it, in my opinion. So, yeah, I don't think it should make it into the micro stage, but not saying fully no, but the focus is on multicellular stage surface area to volume. If no one else has anything to say about that. 2, more of a joke question, but anyways, how often do you play Thrive? How often do you play Thrive and win? Do you think it's important for developers of the game to know how the game behaves and plays? Yes for the last question.
I mean, me personally,
well-
I do a playthrough every time we get an update. So, just to see new
Good.
features and
Yeah.
maybe report something.
Yeah, me too. I usually, when I record footage for the trailer, I usually record for like somewhere between 2 and 4 hours just to edit it down for 1 minute. So I usually do like a full playthrough every third month, maybe 2. Every, like
Hmm.
Oh
something
yeah,
like that.
same.
I usually, if it's gameplay for like testing a feature, probably like at least once a week, though it can be short. If it's like a full dedicated playthrough, probably like once every 2 months or something. If it's a playthrough that's not full, but I'm playing, for fun, maybe like once every like 2 or 3 weeks or something.
For me personally, recently, since I actually started working on Thrive, I've noticed myself mainly very focused testing on the things I'm working on. So it's actually been a while since I just played a normal playthrough, which is probably not the
Yeah.
best. So especially I think from a game design perspective, would be good to just play a normal playthrough a bit more frequently, so I can actually see how the playing game plays now. Because I do agree that's a good perspective to have.
Yeah.
And maybe we should do more of the times where we actually play the game and discuss it at the same time. I think you did a few of those, didn't you? Where I couldn't join.
Yeah, and they were hard to schedule recently because we were more focused on the 1.0 release. But yeah, we did at least like 3 or 4, I think. And I should arrange that for maybe like the next month or 2. So thank you for reminding me that.
Yeah, I always really wanted to join them, but there's always seemed to be something in the way somehow.
Yeah, let's start that up, I think. But I was gonna say with Rathlos, one thing I noticed before joining the development forums and after was that, when I try to play for fun as a designer, I would play for a bit and then I would see something. I'm thinking, that can be improved, or I don't like that. How can it be fixed? And that leads me to kind of just focus on that fully instead of just play it, in the and like fully being present for it. So I can definitely relate to that. Hexapod mentions they do at least one full playthrough at least once for each update, and do shorter ones while implementing new objects in game continuously. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I guess this question about the mods is pretty much aimed at me. Like, actually, in preparation for 1.0, I fixed up and updated all of the example/official mods, and I noticed that they were last released in 2022. So it seems that the official mods will be updated every 3 years, unless someone else wants to help me out with those. And so far, literally no one has helped whatsoever ever making those mods or writing the modding info page. So if it's just up to me, then they will be updated every 3 years apparently.
Yep. So we welcome a volunteer or
Yeah,
a
if anyone
new team member to join
anyone
if they wish
wants
to focus on that.
wants to help with fun mods instead of the main game, they can also just want to do those.
Yep. Okay, and the second question says, how would each person on the team summarize their experience up to full release? Up to the 1.0 release? Is that the question they're asking? Or I don't fully understand the question.
Well, yeah, I guess that is the question, because well, you can't really summarize the future, like more than 10 years into the future.
For 1.0, I was a bit less active the past few weeks because I've been busy with the holiday season, and I'm studying for a certificate as well. So I've been less focused there. But before that point, there was a huge focus on outreach ideas, community ideas, and kind of what we need in these last few release cycles. So pretty hectic time, I would think. And also just the schedule being changed from 3 months to smaller updates every few weeks was pretty tough. Or not tough, but, kind of very different. So I don't know how others would describe their own experience.
Well, for me, it's let's say it's like trying to jump onto a moving car as it's almost crossing the finish line, or at least the first lap. So for me, it was very much a case of like catching up to everything that's going on, and then trying to kind of scramble to get things fixed in time for what I think would look good for the 1.0 release. So it's been a bit hectic from my perspective.
I can imagine, yeah. Aaron just joined. Aaron McKirsch just joined. He's one of our right now, especially, is focused on audio and music. So I think I want to introduce himself briefly. Although they joined very quick recently before the stream would be ending. So
I did make it after all, just at the tail end.
yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Aaron. I am on the sound team, currently working on some soundtracks for the macroscopic stage, and that's about all there is to introduce.
Welcome. They've been more active recently, so it's good to hear from them. Okay, those are the community forum questions. We'll go through some chat questions if anyone wants to. We'll start going through those.
Yeah, we have a few minutes of scheduled stream time left, so.
Okay.
You can see if you want to skip through anything that seems less interesting and pick the best ones.
Okay, sounds good. For Auto Evo, Sneaky Roblox Dev says, for Auto Evo, is the cell nucleus able to evolve in Auto Evo? Because I've never seen it do that. Raftos, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, can you repeat again?
Is the cell nucleus able to be evolved in Auto Evo? Because they've never seen that happen.
It's possible, but right now it's unlikely. The way it's been implemented until very recently, the only benefit the Auto Evo saw from it is size, which Auto Evo saw as more of a downside. for now, it can at least also recognize that the damage resistance it grants is helpful. So it's an ongoing process to make it more likely to happen. So right now it's possible but unlikely, and I'm trying to make it more likely.
Yep. Okay. Iddy Bob asks, is plant life going to be pre-generated or evolve itself? It'll have less of a dedicated system, you could say, to it in the macroscopic stage, but it will be evolving alongside the player. Again, in a very simplified manner. But we need to make sure, we'll want to make sure that you're not, on a plant with absolutely nothing there. So we'll probably have some cut corners and stuff, but it will be evolving. GP Jetty 7379. By the way, if anyone has something to say, just cut me off. I'm going through these as fast as I can. Would you draw inspiration for other climate dynamic systems like in Universe Sandbox 2? Hyperbolic, do you have anything to answer with that here, or?
Well, there are quite a lot of different open source projects out there that detail their own climate systems. If you look on the forums, and we also, both the developer forums and the community forums had quite a long discussion about this. And there are a fair number of projects out there that we can take inspiration from. But overall, the normal, like the basic idea of the climate system, let's see, I'll look it up here. It's the Holdridge life zones.
Okay, we are
Just
over
pasting
the
it into the
2-hour
chat
mark,
here.
so maybe we should do one more chat activity thing and look for one more maybe new question someone might want to ask. They haven't gotten answered before.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask? We'll take one live from the chat.
I wanted to ask which format should we use for 3D models? Because if we use objects, then it won't melt with the creature. So, is there an object that we can use that will melt with the creature while it's in the editor?
I'm not sure I understood the
Sorry
question,
if it
but
doesn't make sense.
But basically we are going to go full procedural. There's not going to be any macroscopic predefined objects for the species. Everything is going to be generated, but of course we'll have something like environmental rocks or something like that that will be pre-made models, but actual species will be all dynamically generated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one question that we'll take from the chat is, Eddie Bob asks, why do you make the cell stage 2D? It's always, well, that's a bit late to ask that question, but because it's really hard to represent microscopic scales and 3D level, especially for microbes. So, and also, spore and everything kind of set that precedent.
Yeah, that's also a pretty good point, but I've also heard from the oldest developers I've talked to, because the microbe stage has been through 2D from the start, that it's much easier to make 2D games. So they wanted to make the easiest stage first and make it in 2D so that it is the easiest thing to develop. I think that was pretty much the right decision, because with limited resources, going full 3D would have meant that anything resembling playable gameplay would have taken years longer.
Yep. Okay, well, if we allow it, that's the last question from the Thrive chat we'll take, since we're over the time already.
Yeah, we can start ending the stream now.
Well, thank you everyone so much for everything that has, happened over these past, well, I've been with the development team for 3 years but for the past 10 years and more, 15 years even, of development with Thrive. We are only here because of you, and, many people would not have thought we would reach this point, but here we are, heading towards the second stage. We thank you from the bottom of our heart, and we really appreciate everything that you've done for us.
Right.
If anyone else has something to say.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess we can remind once more people that you can tell others about Thrive, and that helps a lot. Or if you have game dev skills, you can join. And hopefully everyone enjoys the 1.0 release, which at least seems pretty stable, at least considering the number of bug reports that there's at least no major issues, so that's always nice to see.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you everyone. We really appreciate you guys joining us, and we hope to see you soon in the multicellular stage. Wow.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. See.
Yeah, see you around. Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.
Yep, happy holidays.
Happy holidays and everything else.
And a happy new
Yep.
year.